Hello and welcome to webinar number 3. And most of you know who we are. I'm Dr. Michael Kessler, and I'm involved with education and one of the trainers for Global Health Solutions. And on the right is Dr. Javdat Karimov. He's an MD from Russia. He ran a hyperbaric oxygen chamber in Russia and was an anesthesiologist. Came to the United States, got his NMD at Portland, in Portland, Oregon, and that's where he still resides. And he's one of the main designers and innovators of the HeartQuest. Last but not least is Dr. Sandra Bacchetti. She's a DC, also trained in Chinese medicine. And there's our corporate coordinator and make sure that everything is running smoothly. We couldn't do without her. And for more information, you go to our website, www.hrvhq.com. Has everything you need, hopefully there. And again, the name of our company is Global Health Solutions. And if you want to call us, that's our telephone number down below. And before we get started, we always have to do the disclaimer. All materials presented in this webinar are the property of Global Health Solutions, LLC, and should not be used or copied without the permission of Global Health Solutions. The information in this webinar is not intended, nor should it be used as a substitute for standard medical diagnostic methods. Any recommendations are designed to improve function using nutrition and not treat any specific disease. Any recommendations are the opinion of Global Health Solutions, and clinical judgment must be adhered to based on the healthcare provider's scope of practice. So do you know about the drop-down menus in the HeartQuest? So most of you have the HeartQuest that are on, some of you don't, but some of you who have it don't know about the drop-down menus. Here's the first one. So where you see the circle up here on the chart of the meridians, you click on that, and then this drop-down menu comes down, and it tells you, if you want to look up a particular meridian. So you got some weaknesses here. So for example, in the liver, you go across here, and there it is, nux vomica. You can use that, or natrium phosphoricum in the cell salts. So you got that. We also have in the same area right next to it, you click info. And if you're one of those who practices applied kinesiology, it has all the applied kinesiology tests that you would want to use as far as muscle testing and what neurolymphatic points to stimulate. And so in this case, that's the lung meridian. You could muscle test and stimulate again those specific neurolymphatic points. It's all there for you. If you're looking at the energy plexus and you click here where it says info, this will drop down, and this is great. So in those particular energy plexes, this is numbered EP1, 2, 3, and so on. You can go to the ones that are the lowest reading, and in this case, it would probably be EP2. Looks like the lowest one there. Anyway, you'd go over there, you'd find that number, and it would tell you what organs that are involved in that particular energy plexus. And it would also tell you what emotional component may be involved and what oils that you might want to use and where you would place those oils. When I mean oils, I mean essential fatty acids. Excuse me, not essential fatty acids, I mean essential oils. Okay, like in this case, it's frankincense or myrrh. If you get on the website and you hit purchase products, this will show up. And if most of you have the HeartQuest, some of you have the AngioScan, which is here for measuring vascular health. And a lot of you are starting to use the auricular therapy on the ear with the 3D software, which we highly recommend. And if you haven't seen the video the second advanced webinar that we just did, you might want to watch that. We cover why you want to use that. And we like you to stimulate Shen Min, 0 point vagus nerve, and if there's some, abnormal heartbeat, or regular heartbeat, then you might want to stimulate the heart point and definitely the vagus nerve to affect that cholinergic anti-inflammatory pathway. Okay. And we also have, which is new, the bioimpedance body composition analysis, because we're going to show you some measurements before and after using what we call these parent essential oils that we're going to talk about today to improve the cell membrane function. When you want to click, you can click on purchase products, and we have an incredible setup to purchase these parent essential oils for you at probably the best price for the health practitioners. And we'll explain that. So, what are we going to talk about today? So, global health, three major technologies that measure the one, that measures hydration, the health of the cell membrane with the BIA, the cardiovascular health with the angioscan, and the overall health with our HeartQuest. We're going to talk about the importance of the cell membrane and the mitochondrial membranes. We're going to talk a lot about that because it's a big deal. We want to repair those. How to repair the cellular membranes and improve the scores. So not only do we want to improve the integrity of these membranes, but we want to be able to measure how those membranes, when they work properly, are going to affect that person's health, which we could measure on the angioscan, the BIA, and the HeartQuest. And really, preventing major health issues by using non-invasive monitoring devices, right? So how do you know without measuring? I'm just going to say it over. Measure, 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 measure. So these are our top three technologies. We have one more possibly coming that's more gives you a picture if the person has some kind of brain trauma. So then you do whatever therapies that you like to do, and you can check it. It's very, very cool. So with the angioscan, I highly recommend everybody screen their patients with this thing. It's a breakthrough in clinical cardiology and office assessment with pulse wave velocity and digital pulse wave analysis. We'll explain that. And this was an article written by Brian Peskin, who we're going to be listening to today. This is what he says. The article explores an exciting, non-invasive, easy to use, and economical method of assessing patients' cardiovascular physiologic status that is backed by more than 25 years of advanced research in medical physics. A 2007 clinical medicine article points the way to better clinical treatment of cardiovascular disease, stating arterial stiffness measured by pulse wave analysis is an accepted strong, independent predictor of cardiovascular events and mortality. Definitely want to use this thing. How does this thing work? How does this angioscan do its thing? Well, when the heart beats, it sends a pulse wave out. Whoa, let's go back down the artery, okay, to where it bifurcates at the femoral artery, turns back, and we're measuring the speed at which it returns back. So if it's nice and flexible, no problem. But if it's more like a pipe, it's going to return back too fast when the heart is making its next contraction. And guess what? The heart has to work harder. And so it's putting more load on the left ventricle of the heart. So it's got to work longer, harder, and there's going to be less time in diastole, where the heart gets its own blood supply to the coronary arteries. Okay? So just to reiterate, healthy arteries are elastic, and pulse waves from the heart travel to the femoral arteries where they bifurcate. This is where the pulse wave is reflected back to the heart. With a healthy artery, it reflects back after the aortic valve is closed, during diastole and late systole, thus decreasing the afterload on the myocardium of the left ventricle and improving coronary perfusion. And down here, this is one of the screens of the angioscan, and it's measuring something called pulse curve type. And this is a C. This person's 100% C. We all kind of want to shoot for C. C-type wave is typical for younger subjects in the age of 18 to 35 years with normal elasticity of the arterial walls. Now I've seen this, I live in an active adult community and I got a whole bunch of guys here who've been working out all their life and they don't have a lot of stress and they've done pretty much the right things. They probably have good genes. They don't have any what we call nitric oxide synthase variants in their genes probably, and they're doing good, right? And I've seen somebody in their 70s, close to the 70s, with a C. That's pretty good. And that's something we all want to shoot for if we can. So let's start here. So this is an experiment, which we're going to be talking today about. We'll go into depth on this because this is something that everybody out there should know about, these parent essential oils. Now, we loaded this particular patient with the parent essential oils. Taking 3 parent essential oils at 3 of them 2 times a day, and basically for a 104-pound patient, and I'll tell you how you calculate that in just a bit. But they're mostly A. So, that's typical for somebody over 60 years old, and they're 68. But they don't want to be A. And so this is March 1st, and after saturating and taking these PEO oils, parent essential oils, March 11th, a little less A, good, a little more B, good, and we're getting some C in there. And that didn't take a long time. That's pretty amazing. And their vascular stiffness is improving. This is their large arteries, like the aorta. And less is best. So they were 22.4, and you want to be less than somebody, the average person for your age, which is 22.8, and they are. But look what happened after taking this from March 1st to the March 11th. It's 8.4. It dropped a lot. That's a big drop. And this person's 68, but their vascular age is more like 51. But now it's more like 39. And we've been trying to move this person doing all sorts of other things, nitric oxide, things that are going to help with nitric oxide. But this kind of pushed it in the direction that we were looking for. Pretty amazing. It also changed the heart quest. So most of you are used to looking at this. This is March 1st, March 10th. So we'll just tell you what the improvements are by taking the parent essential oils. Look at the stress index. Improve the ratios between HF, LF, and VLF, right? So it's much better percentage ratio of these frequencies. Autonomic nervous system balance index is better. The vital force is better. And the SDNN is better. Neurohormonal regulation is better. You can see here. This is starting to come down a little bit. We want it in the green zone. Less distortion in the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, right? And look, the metabolic rate index is improving. It's coming up because when you take these oils, they're going to improve oxygen into the cell, and that's going to help with the mitochondria producing more energy, right? Now, excuse me. Whoa, stay there. Remember from the first, the new tools webinar, which was our first advanced webinar we've done this year. If it's blue here, this means, when this person does exercise, which they do, they need a little bit more time to recharge their battery and recover. Okay. Fractal portrait of biorhythm coherence is better. The biological age is better. Look at that. 69, now it's 63. Wow, pretty good. Peak performance, complex analysis of peak performance, 22 to 35%. Things are improving. All the mineral ratios except magnesium improved. It's pretty good. Inflammation index improved. DHA really improved. Estradiol improved. Pregnenolone improved. If you look at the meridians after taking the oils, look at all the deficiencies here. So a lot less deficiencies. Meridians, less deficiencies as depicted in red on the baseline. Increase in total power of energy going through the meridians. So you can see there's more power, more energy running through there. Wood element improved, earth element more balanced, water element better. In fact, the water element's a lot better. Look at that, 9% to 40%. If you look at the energy plexus, before, after taking the oils, all energetic plexus improved. Pretty good. We're tracking this, and I'll go to the next one because this one is still in progress, looking at how healthy the cell membranes are. This is the phase angle. So this person's phase angle, and we'll get into that and why that's important, because that's a direct measurement of how healthy those cell membranes are. Phase angle 7.3 on March 10th, after this person's been taking the parent essential oils. March 22nd, it went up to 7.8. So that doesn't, you haven't gone through the little talk on the phase angle yet, but we're going to get there, okay? And so you have a good understanding. 7.8 is really good for this particular person who's 61. And we'll show you the chart where you can go across and see what the age is of that particular individual, and you want them to be much better always than their age, better cells. So if you don't know where you are going, you might wind up someplace else, Yogi Berra. So we want to be testing. Again, measure with these tools. And if things aren't going in the right direction, then you got to change course a little bit. But you have some great measuring tools. So where does the health get sidetracked and what can we do about it? Now we're getting into the heavier stuff here. To be healthy, you have to be able to have the right consistency in here on the cell membranes. They have to be able to be not too rigid, not too much of not too fluid where things aren't going to work and nutrients can't get in, toxins can't get out. We're going to talk about that. And inside the cell, we're also talking about the cell membranes here that is very, very important to produce energy. And a lot of the health issues that we see today are here, dealing with the mitochondria membranes. We're going to talk about that. Which takes us to this area here called the somatic mutation theory that has dominated cancer biology for 50 years, which to me represents this old hat, because we certainly haven't been winning the war on cancer. And so when they talk about this theory, the somatic mutation theory, they're talking about cancers derived from a single somatic cell that has accumulated multiple hits on its DNA. So accumulated multiple DNA mutations, and you end up with uncontrolled proliferation from these mutated genes. It separates itself from the body's regulatory system. So it decides that it's going to do its own thing, right? Separate itself from the community. And we'll talk about that. So in mainstream conventional thinking, it's all about the mutations in your genes, and that's what they're trying to target with the therapies. But if it is the genes, I mean, if it is the mutations in the genes, then this is an experiment that kind of shows that maybe that's not really happening that way. So here's a healthy cell. Here's a cancer cell. If I take that cancer with all the mutations in that nucleus here, take this one out, put that one in, no cancer. Now, if I switch it and take this mutated cell out, right? No mutations, put the healthy nucleus in there without any mutations, it gets cancer. You got cancer. So it's got to be what's going on out here in the cytoplasm. It's something different that's going on. It's not the gene mutations. We're going to talk about that. So this is where it gets really interesting. The story of cancer starts in the unhospitable planet called Earth about 1.5 billion years ago. At this time, single cell life prevailed, and they had a simple agenda: replicate, replicate, replicate. About 600 million years ago, there was this great flowering of multicellular life. Things started to change. And so these single cells, they had to work out an agreement and work in communities. So they eventually formed a contract to work in a collective with groups of cells for the good of the community. Excuse me. They gave up their superpower of uncontrolled immortality. Today, the ancient genes from the past are still there. So why are these genes still around? Well, take a guess. They're around through embryogenesis, right? To form us. And then they get turned off. So these ancient genes are still with us. And all this comes from Paul Davies. So the National Cancer Institute was going, wow, we're not getting anywhere with cancer, and we can't keep doing the same things. We need to have some other input from somebody a little bit different with a different background. So they got Paul Davies, who's a theoretical physicist, cosmologist, astrobiologist. This guy's a bright guy. And that's what he's saying. He's saying this cancer thing is a throwback from the past. And we still carry these old ancient genes with us that are still involved in embryogenesis. And he says, even we have things like these dolphins with 4 fins may prove terrestrial origins. And this article from National Geographic, and the guy says, I believe the fins may be the remains from a time when dolphins, ancient ancestors, lived on land. This is what you would call an atavistic trait, an evolutionary throwback. So this is kind of what we're talking about, that we have these evolutionary throwbacks, and something happens, which we'll talk about, that triggers that ancient genetic profile that we talk about called cancer, right? So one of the genes, this is important, hexokinase, catalyzes the first step of glycolysis, breaking down of the sugar and the utilization of sugar, and we are all born with this gene, so we have it. As adults, we express something called isozyme 1, but cancer will revert to isozyme 2. So hexokinase 2 shoves sugar down the pathway and is responsible for the Warburg effect, which we'll talk about. This enzyme will bind to the mitochondria and close the channel responsible for cell death. This creates immortalization of the cell. So this one enzyme shift is expressed during embryologic development and then is shut off and then re-expressed in cancer. So we have all this information, right? The genes that are active in cancer are also the genes that are active in development of the embryo. I thought that was just really interesting. So nature just builds on itself, and it keeps learning and adding, and doesn't lose that information, right? By the way, this is an excellent book, Tripping Over the Truth. So it talks about there's an actual drug, and I worked in this gentleman's office who had this. It's called 3BP that blocks this hexokinase 2. They put you on a ketogenic diet and use hyperbaric oxygen. Some of the different ways of dealing with this. So what we're talking about, this hypothesis is cancer cells become derailed and they default back to genetic ancestral pathways. So evolution is running backwards at high speed, is what's really happening here. Back to here. Now, the thing about cancer is because it's been around for so long, as you see this from an evolutionary standpoint, it became really smart for survival. And it's got lots of tricks, as we know. That's why it's so hard to deal with this, because it's pretty smart. Excuse me. This is truth, not dogma. And these are gentlemen that I highly respect that are looking for the truth. And one of the gentlemen over here on the left is Dr. Otto Warburg from Germany. He was one of the premier physicists, medical doctor, Nobel laureate, excuse me, spent his career studying the cause of cancer. All normal cells require oxygen, but cancer cells live without oxygen, deprive a cell of 35% of its oxygen for 48 hours, and it may become cancerous. Okay. The gentleman who took up Otto Warburg's work today is Thomas Seyfried. He took Otto Warburg's research to the next level, I believe. And he's saying that the problem is the mitochondria. It gets damaged. We'll talk about that. So the tumor cell uses aerobic fermentation. This is the big deal. Due to damaged mitochondria, and when this system does not work, the cells turn on oncogenes to survive that feed for this glucose fermenting cancer cell. Then Brian's saying, well, the answer to heal a lot of these problems, or prevent a lot of these problems, including cardiovascular disease and some of the aging and dementia, is to have healthy cell membranes in the first place. Because the membranes have a lot to do with what we're going to show you in just a minute, at least getting oxygen into the cells. Because when you don't have oxygen going to the mitochondria and it's not working properly, it may revert to these states that we don't want it to go. We don't want it to go into, where it's not working properly. We'll get oxygen and we end up fermenting glucose. Excuse me. So how healthy is your cell membranes? Well, we can measure them with the BIA. And we really want to be able to do that. And we also want to measure the fluids in our body, because remember that the fluids are surrounding our cells. So this is all about healthy cells. So if we have dehydration, it takes me to Dr. Batman Galege. Your body's many cries for water. And most of you know who he is. He was the doctor for the Shah of Iran. And when he was overthrown, what did they do with Dr. Batman Galege? They threw him in jail. And he only had one way to treat patients, and that was with water. And this is what he came up with. He says every cell of the brain is composed of 85% water. The rest of the soft tissue cells are made of 75% water. And he said symptoms of dehydration, which is almost everything you could possibly think of. These are the early signs of dehydration. You kind of look at that. Indirect signs, complications associated with dehydration, which is, there's a lot of stuff there. We were so good at doing sophisticated things with our patients, and got to make sure they do the simple things. Make sure they were hydrated. This is what he says about dehydration in cancer. Dehydration produces physiological conditions that can promote the formation of cancerous cells, including DNA damage via pH dysregulation, reduced effectiveness of DNA repair systems. Excess histamine leads to increased production of cellular proteolytic enzymes, which in turn damage cell receptors. Excess histamine also suppresses critical immune functions required to detect and destroy incipient cancer cells. This is where I lie, though. This is kind of my area, and that is maintaining a healthy biological terrain. So just think about the fluids around your cells, and you have to nourish that cell, right? Similar to a plant that is nourished by the soil, a human cell is bathed in a nutrient-filled fluid called the interstitial fluid, also called the biological terrain. So the interstitial fluid or biological terrain nourishes 100 trillion cells in your body. It delivers to your cells electrolytes, nutrients, minerals, vitamins, enzymes, hormones, and water. So, that's pretty important, right, for the health of your cells, right? But the same interstitial fluid transports the substances and waste products that the cells release. So it's got a big job getting the nutrients in and getting rid of the toxins from the cell. These substances enter the blood, urine, lymphatic fluid, and saliva for proper utilization and disposal. Also involved in this is the autonomic nervous system, which we talk a lot about with the heart quest, right? It's intimately involved in regulation within the biological terrain. So when we look at the whole complex around our cells and connected to our cells, we call that the extracellular matrix. And this terrain we're talking about, this interstitial fluid, is part of this extracellular matrix, the glue that holds all of your body cells together. And the extracellular matrix is the master regulator and dictates the health of your cells. So you can see it's kind of attached to your cell membranes. It holds us together. That's all we thought in physiology and anatomy, that was just what it did. But it does a lot more, and it's a major communication highway. And that's what this guy says, Alfred Pissinger. And that's a great book, The Extracellular Matrix and Ground Regulation, the basis for holistic and biological medicine. Now, this takes me to a buddy of mine. He wrote this book, Vital Energy Medicine, the magic of the matrix. He's talking about the largest system that connects and pervades everywhere in the human body. Now, Peter was from Germany, and he knew all the German biological docs, and he was also a big proponent of something called Picana remedies that you could find here in Santa Rosa, that was brought here by Mike Sheehan for his company from Germany, which was not an easy task. And those are drainage remedies to clear and clean this biological terrain. Now, I'm not going to go through all the anatomy of the extracellular matrix, but I'm going to read this one right here. Energy and information travels through the matrix and interconnects with all cells via a special protein called integrams. This means that all cells and all organs are interconnected by this informational network that extends to the surface of the body through the meridians. So, pretty interesting. He says that it's a transport medium for materials to move to and from cells, a storage medium for growth factors, toxins, and other materials, and a way for cells to communicate. So in the matrix, every cell can communicate. Everything's connected. It's faster than the nervous system. It's pretty amazing. Importantly, the matrix acts as a buffer. Acute toxin loads can be stored and released at a rate that the detoxification organs can handle, thus reducing stress on the liver, kidneys, and other tissue. So early man, if he was eating something that was poisonous, instead of going directly and overloading the liver, it would be stored in this matrix and slowly seep out slowly, so the liver could handle it, and this person wouldn't die. So this is what I found was really interesting. The matrix purges itself of toxins every 24 hours. And when it's alkaline, it's more solid, kind of like a jello. But then, excuse me, becomes more acid around 3 a.m. And it's like we start pumping protons in here, becomes more acid, and it starts to become more liquid, right? So we could get rid of these toxins between 3 a.m. in the morning. The body pumps protons in the matrix, peaking at 9 a.m. and finishing at 3 p.m. So then it enters the bloodstream, so we could eliminate it and deal with those toxins through the liver, kidneys, intestines. Okay. So what affects the extracellular matrix? We kind of know that damage to for free radical oxidation, chronic inflammation, bad diet, exposure to chemicals, exposure to biologically incompatible frequencies from electrical devices, and stress from overwork. Any damn thing gets saturated. Kind of like an old sponge that has been wrung out between uses. Has not, see how I do that? It has not been wrung out between uses. It's kind of building up all those toxins, right? This deterioration reduces the matrix's ability to transmit information and leads to chronic illness. So as toxins build up in this area, it's going to seep into the local tissues and into the cells, and as it goes deeper and deeper into, we call that homotoxicology, as it goes deeper and deeper into the system, then we have more health issues. So this is Alfred Pissinger again, a renowned physiologist with incredible insight. He says the matrix is the midwife of the cells of organs and was derived from evolution. A highly specialized cell could only arise and survive in the primordial seas that fed and protected it. Nothing about this has changed to this day, except that we now carry the primordial sea around with us. Well, that may be true, but the problem is that primordial sea that we carry with us is really deficient in a lot of the elements. We used to have all the elements on the periodic table in that ocean that we carried with us. And because of the soil and everything else today, it's probably not complete. It's probably deficient. But the primary component of the extracellular matrix is water. Make sure your patients are hydrated, right? Drink at least 4 to 6 glasses of purified water a day. So how do we improve the health of our cells? We're going to decrease inflammation and excess oxidative stress, repair cell membranes, and clean up the biological terrain on the cells. So here it is. This is some clinical pearls. You can do what you want, but this is some ideas I have for you. These are drainage remedies, okay, to help with elimination and clean up the extracellular matrix. This was for the liver, lymphatics, kidneys, the apohepat, arteries, and renal. And you can put them all in the same glass of water, by the way. So for excretion and drainage of the extracellular matrix, this is a good idea. How about to create a balanced environment for the biological terrain? That's Quinton marine plasma. So this stuff is amazing. It came from the ocean. Tastes like salt water, by the way. And there's certain places on the planet where there's these plankton plumes. And these little zooplankton eat the plankton, and minerals are coming up from the bottom, and it creates this solution called quinton. And what we do with that is first of all, why when we take it, we've done experiments with the heart quest for sure, and it improves heart quest scores and improves autonomic nervous system regulation. And they say that it would do that. I mean, that's why I got it in the first place, because I wanted to improve the scores, and they said it would improve the biological terrain and create a much improved environment around our cells. It seems to do that, and I highly recommend it. We obviously just told you we want to make sure our patients are hydrated. And this is where we're going to go. PEOs to fix cell membranes, and we're going to discuss that in depth. With these oils, we're going to saturate our patient's cell membranes. We're going to rebuild our cell membranes. It takes about 90 days because everything happens on the cell membrane. We want to get oxygen in there. All our receptors for our hormones and everything else is on the cell membrane. We need to fix that and repair that because most of us don't have optimal cell membranes. Aqua H2 using a molecular hydrogen. So what you do is you get a bottle of water, you put one of these pills in the water, you seal it so it's tight, you wait 15 minutes and you drink it. And you're getting this molecular hydrogen gas. And it goes immediately into your brain, into your tissues. There's about 171 PubMed research articles on it for specific disease processes. But one of the things it does is it takes out the most damaging free radical, hydroxyl radicals. Now, we have free radicals in our body, and we don't want to just completely annihilate them because they're self-signaling. They are important for dealing with killing off pathogens. And so, but this one, no redeeming value. It's just damages the tissues of the body, causes inflammation. And so this is very specific for that. This also turns on NRF2, which stimulates something called ARE, the antioxidant response element. So when you have inflammation or infection or something going on, you stimulate that NRF2, and it's going to produce things for you to help you fight inflammation. And most of you heard of those things: glutathione, SOD, catalase. So instead of giving those things, we have the body make them because the body knows best. Okay, and there's more reasons. NRF2 helps your mitochondria become more efficient and helps you make more mitochondria. So this is kind of my little anti-aging system right here. So back to measuring. So we're going to measure the body composition. So how do we measure the body composition? With the bioimpedance. So we're going to look at the fluids. We're going to measure intracellular water, which is a sensitive indicator of cellular nutritional health. Higher values are better. That's the fluid inside your cells. That's the intracellular water. Now, the extracellular water, good indicator of general toxicity. Increased levels cause capillary compression and can diminish oxygen transport to cells. Bad. That's where things go wrong when we don't have enough oxygen to our cells. Excess extracellular water can result in fatigue, sleep problems, headaches, confusion, and anxiety. Lower values are better. So you look at both these. So if the intracellular water should be greater than the extracellular water. But what if it's reversed? Then it means exactly what you just read here. The answer to pollution is dilution. And so we have more water outside the cell. The body is toxic. It's a good example. We also want to measure total body water, which is a mathematically determined measure, relative to lean body mass. Excuse me. Should be 55% for females of all ages and more than 60% for males of all ages. Now, this is the coup de grace. This is the one measurement that is so important to me because it's an extraordinary indicator and predictor of total health. The phase angle measures the strength, resiliency, and energy storage capacity of the cell membrane system. So we have a measurement now. We have a treatment and we have a measurement for the cell membrane. Several major studies have shown phase angle to be an exceptionally accurate and non-invasive prognostic tool for tracking AIDS, cancer, kidney disease, and many other disorders. Higher values are better. Excuse me. So the cells of the body are like sponges, except that they hold energy rather than water. Healthy cells can hold more energy than unhealthy cells. Stress cells are already overloaded, so they saturate more quickly. When we inject extra energy into the body, there's also a measurable time delay before the energy pours out again. By measuring this time delay, which is called the phase angle, we could determine whether the cells are healthy, depleted, or stressed, that is, already overloaded. So by putting a little current into the cell membrane, we're measuring how long it can hold on to that charge before it releases it. And we can measure it right here, this time delay. Energy in, energy out, and what's the delay time right there? That's what we're measuring. So medical studies closely link general health and athletic performance to high phase angles. Some diseases like sickle cell anemia are correlated with low phase angles indicating poor cellular energy capacity. So I told you about this chart. So if you get this system, this is the chart that I like to use. So if somebody's, say, 40 years old, this is kind of the average of what their intracellular water should be. But higher is always better, right? Higher intracellular water. And then we can look over at the average for extracellular water. But remember, if that extracellular water is much higher than this guy over here, they're toxic. If you have a patient come in and say they're 30 years old and they have a phase angle of 7.0, that's really good. Higher always is better. So mine's on like 61 and mine was 7.7. So that's where I want to be. But if all of a sudden, what would happen if it started to drop? That's not a good sign, not a good prognosis. If it's starting to drop, you kind of suspect things going on maybe. Fat, the new health paradigm. This is where things go a little bit. Well, this slide I used before, but now I have to change it because omega-3 fatty acids are really not what we think they are. And I had to get rid of my fish oils after spending some time with Brian Peskin. And he says fish oil is anti-aging. And there he is. And I highly recommend you all read the book, PEO Solution: Conquering Cancer, Diabetes, Heart Disease with Parent Essential Oils. We're going to play a little video clip of Brian in just a moment. Before I do that, I kind of want to show you this. So what is in the Parent Essential Oils? Pumpkin oil, high linoleic, high linoleic sunflower oil, evening primrose oil, extra virgin coconut oil, okay, and a little bit of flax for the omega-3. So we'll call this omega-6 the mom, and we'll call omega-3 the dad, because they're the control here. They're the controllers. Mostly people are dropping down because they think it's going to be healthier to go further down the biochemical pathway and use EPA and DHEA. But these guys know how much EPA and DHEA, and they control it. And when you jump ahead and you start jumping this into the system, dropping this in with our fish oils that we do, you throw off the cell membranes, you throw off the fine-tuned relationship and bypass the body's intelligence. So taking EPA and DHA downstream creates an imbalance. Okay? And you notice that the omega-6 here, anti-inflammatory. And all the saturated fats, not all bad. We do need a certain amount of inflammation to heal, right? So we're going to show you teach you about this patented parent essential oil that was used in some of the research that we'll show you in just a bit. And with that said, I'm going to play this little video for you.
Delighted to be here, and I want to thank Dr. Weeks for inviting me. We need more cutting-edge physicians with integrative medicine. So I'm going to talk today about the superiority of plant-based seed oils. First question everybody should ask is, I don't know what to believe. Coffee was bad, now it's good. Salt was bad, now it's good. Fats were bad, now they're good. Medicine goes in a big merry-go-round going nowhere every 20 years. They come back to the beginning. So you need science, not associations. You need cause, effect. And the typical study is you get up at 6 in the morning and the sun arises. So your association with the sun going up caused it. Well, being a scientist, I would do the experiment. I'd have you get up at 6, you get up at 7, you get up at 8, you get up at 9, and lo and behold, the sun is up at 6, regardless when anybody is up. So that's called an association. That's wrong. So you need science, cause, effect, and I'm going to give you a lot of science. Parent EFAs are called PEOs because they're essential. EFA stands for essential fatty acid. PEO stands for parent essential oil. I coined the term because so many people were using EFA incorrectly, referring it to what's called derivatives. Now, all you need to know about parent oils, there's two types, omega-3, omega-6. Body can't make them. They have to come from food, okay? Have 100 trillion cells. 50% of every one of those 100 trillion is fat. It's called a bilipid membrane. Out of those fats, 25% to 33%, 1/4 to 1/3 consists of parent oils. It is the structure of every cell you have. Also, the mitochondria that makes your energy is full of parent omega-6, one of them, the parents. Fish oil is anti-aging, and I'll prove that for you in a minute. It's unbelievable. So you take fish oil, ruins your mitochondria. EFAs, PEOs, the essential difference, parent essential oils are essential. Your body cannot make them. They're technically termed LA and ALA. What you need to know is fish oil's components, DHA, EPA, are derivatives. That means they come from the parents. So if you have the parents, your body makes derivatives as needed. And what the entire medical field didn't know until recently, and most of the physicians still don't know it because they don't read these type of lipid journals, 99% of the parents stay as parents. They incorrectly thought that 99% would go to derivatives. So if I give your body derivatives, I'm making the work easy because I don't have to have the body convert the parents. They had it backwards. The parents stay as parents. So we have an overdose of fish oil today, unfortunately. So if you just remember one thing, 95 to 99% of the parent oils stay as parents in the cell. And all the references are on the bottom of these slides, so you can pull up any of them. What do PEOs support? Appetite, heart health, beauty, anti-inflammation, almost everything. So you go, are they the fountain of youth? Well, they make the cell. So if I had 100 trillion cells deficient, would I expect a problem? And yesterday, a physician gave a lecture. It was very, very good and had a question. We don't understand this. You can be overweight and not diabetic, or you can be diabetic and not overweight. Correlation isn't real good. Has everything to do with the cell membrane, because this is what I look at. I care about disease prevention, so all of my science is medical. The cell membrane allows that insulin and any hormone to go back and forth. So if you have a compromised cell membrane, oxygen's impaired, every hormone's impaired, everything is impaired. The key is in the cell membrane. Newsflash, in 2008, they made a big improvement, big breakthrough. The parent omega-3, not the derivatives like fish oil, but the parent form less heart disease. And what they did is this was a great experiment because they had different levels of fish oil. So they varied the parent omega-3 seed oil, and they looked at different levels of fish oil, low, medium, and large. If you give all the fish oil all day long, it did not help heart disease. Conclusion, parent omega-3 in the red confers important cardiovascular protection. Plant-based seed oil is real good. What is some of the things that it does? Anti-diabetes. They looked at people eating the oily fish that you're told to in America to eat, the good oily fish with the EPA, DHA. That was worse. Higher blood sugars, less insulin than the lean fish. Anti-aging. Extends life. Reduce risk of cancer. I'll tell you about in a minute. 2013, men with the highest DHA, EPA levels, the most prostate cancer. Less cardiovascular disease. The reason it's clogged is because of oxidized parent omega-6. So the key is bring in fresh, fully functional parent omega-6 every day. Food processors never use omega-3 fats, so they never cook with fish oil. They never cook with flax oil. The entire problem of why you have to take the unadulterated seed oils every day is because all the omega-6 oils are ruined. To get long shelf life, every food processor in the fast food restaurants, the fine dining restaurants, needs to have that oil last forever. So they use extenders, they stop the oxygenation so it never goes bad, and we die. We really do. 2009. They finally said, we've been wrong, you need omega-6. They've gotten a bad reputation, tied to arachidonic acid. It's a detail, but the bottom line is, and this was their quote, not mine, I think they looked at my work because this is the kind of language I use, it reflects a naive understanding of biochemistry. The people that were telling you the omega-6 was bad because of the arachidonic acid have no understanding of biochemistry. In the red, parent omega-6, powerful anti-inflammatory properties that counteract any of the negative ones they say. They're not negative, they're systems. You need inflammation, you need anti-inflammation. If you had no inflammation, you'd be a worm because you'd have no blood pressure. Your blood pressure is 180 or 120 over 80. So if it was 0, you'd be a worm on the ground. So you need a system. And I do life systems engineering science. Here's a little chart. You can look at it at home real quick. Everybody says we get too much omega-6. No, we don't. You need lots of omega-6. We get too much adulterated omega-6. In the phospholipids, between the 6 and the 3, 115 to 1. In the cholesterol esters, 100 to 1. 8.5 to 1 in the plasma on esterified. In the triglycerides, 17 to 1. I mean, it's all technical stuff, but we need a lot of omega-6 unadulterated parent form. When the PEOs become oxidized, the oxygen transfer stops. That's A spots. So anybody has a lot of A spots on their hand, that's oxidized lipids. So you put in the unoxidized ones, over time those will get lighter. But you can have oxidized tissues. And they did this with monkeys. They gave them fish oil, and they got those A spots in their liver. This was in 2010. Inside layer of the artery, picture a straw. Inside layer, it's all omega-6. It's called the intima. It's epithelial tissue. There's no fish oil. There's no omega-3 in there. So when they say fish oil helps heart disease, how? It can't. Again, the whole problem is in processed omega-6 oils. So the key is a supplement with more parent omega-6 than parent omega-3. Here's the pathways. This is technical stuff again. It's complicated, or all the physicians would know this. Called icosanoids. What you need to know, 2 things. PGE1 is the body's #1 anti-inflammatory. The most important anti-inflammatory comes from the omega-6 pathway, not the omega-3. Prostacyclin makes the platelets not stick to each other or not stick to the artery. Heart disease is gone. You have prostacyclin, I don't know how you get a heart attack. If the platelets can't stick to the artery, can't stick together, you don't have a problem. This is the omega-6 side. The omega-3 side is very, very weak. So the focus has to be on the omega-6 side. PEOs are anti-aging. Did an experiment. Can measure arterial flexibility, like if your artery is like a balloon compared to a straw. If it's like a straw, that's called hardening of the arteries, major cause of heart disease, heart attack. Well, we looked at people taking fish oil and then people taking the seed oils. People taking the fish oil, then stopping, going to seed oils. After just a few months, about 11 years younger cardiovascular-wise, just by stopping the fish oil and converting to the seed oils. So this is absolute clinical scientific proof. Fish oil ages you. Plant oils are anti-aging. Nobel Prize winner Otto Warburg, MD, PhD, the greatest physiologist of the 20th century, conclusively showed cancer is caused by one thing: lack of cellular oxygen. What transfers the cellular oxygen? The cell membrane, the omega-6 in that cell membrane. So it has to be fully functional, unadulterated. If you're having cooking oil and baking in it, frying in it, using it for anything at the corner store, whatever the supermarkets here, you're going to stop that. Cancer is through the roof in America. There's no end in sight. All the secondary causes of cancer tie back to the first one: asbestos, smoking. They all irritate, and whenever there's any irritation, there's inflammation. Like the doctor said yesterday, inflammation takes all your oxygen, so you have an oxygen deficiency. If it's extended period of time at 35%, this was absolutely proven, but they didn't know how to stop it back then. Today we do. And it's a medical journal article in 1976 where they showed enhance the supply of oxygen to the tissue. You can get cancer in any cell that is oxygen deficient over an extended period of time, and it can be intermittent. So it can be okay oxygen now, deficient for a few hours, okay again. It can happen anywhere. There's only cancer. It doesn't matter where it is. It came from the same problem: adulterated fats in the cell membrane. These oils, plant-based oils, oxygen magnets. They allow transfer of the oxygen from the bloodstream into the tissue. That cell membrane is critical to this. So the artery, the intima, the oxygenation, you have plant-based oils, especially the omega-6 side, maximum oxygen. So the big warning is, in America and around the world, because everybody follows America's lead, you are having highly processed foods and lack of fully functional omega-6 oils. So at least half of the omega-6 everybody's eating, unless they're eating 100% raw foods vegan diet, which is nearly nobody, half of what they're getting is screwed up. They better put it back in. You need a conservative amount of the omega-3 side, because that is important, but not as important as the omega-6 side. So you need more parent omega-6 than omega-3. Has to be cold-pressed, non-adulterated, with more parent omega-6 than parent omega-3, and you have gone a long, long, long way to alleviating the majority of any health problem anybody's going to have. So I hope that gives you a little bit. There's a lot of science here, and thank you. If there's any time left, we can have a question, but thank you.
So you kind of heard it from Brian Paskin, how important these specific oils are, and all our patients should be taking this, and we should be taking this as well. So I have the angio-scan, and he did this experiment using the same kind of technology. We call it photoplasmography. This is proof of concept in humans. So he wanted to see how that would affect the arterial flexibility of the arteries. He called it the Iowa study results. Remarkable experiment results of arterial compliance improvement with PEO formulation. So after 4 months, people on fish oil stopped and converted to the parent essential oils, and it showed their biological arterial flexibility was 11 years younger. So here it is. Marine oils decrease arterial compliance, a bad outcome. The most remarkable finding was that subjects taking fish oil prior to PEOs obtained the most improvement. This was anticipated since those subjects started at a greater vascular deficit caused by the fish oil consumption. Compared to PEOs, fish oil users had an 11-year older cardiovascular system as measured by arterial compliance population scans. More than a decade's additional hardening of the arteries compared to their physical age. Now, this is interesting. Ceasing fish oil use allowed the arterial system to revert to normal. Once the vascular system was back to normal, the expected improvement from PEOs, as shown by the other groups, was also achieved, which translated to an even greater decrease in biological age based on where they had started. Clearly, fish oil accelerates vascular age. Marine oils are an anti-aging substance. That was really tough for most of us. I mean, I had to get rid of my fish oils. And we did the same experiment in my clinic with the angioscan using, as you saw at the beginning of this workshop, in a shorter period of time, it started to improve arterial compliance very quickly. So a healthy cell membrane is synonymous with total health, all right? So look at these ratios, the ratio of tissue composition here. Look how much of the brain and nervous system is omega-6, omega-6. Just look at that. Skin, organs and tissues compared to the omega-3, right? Compared to, look at the adipose tissue in the body fat. There is virtually no omega-3, excuse me, in the skin tissue. So this is what you really need to remember is that the parent omega-6 is like an oxygen magnet. So science shows that EFAs transport oxygen, enable its use in the mitochondria. Remember what happens when we don't get enough oxygen into the mitochondria, and we start to revert back to the ancient past where we talked about that in the beginning here today. So really important. So why does a good guy go bad? Processed toxic food with processed fats and way too much sugar. And the deficiency, excuse me, the deficiency of healthy fats. Yeah, there's environmental carcinogens and all those things, but look, processed fats become part of your cell membrane. And when this happens, it's going to affect the mitochondria, your body's cellular engine. Real important. When we have damage to the inner mitochondrial membrane, excuse me, health suffers. So cancer as a metabolic disease by Thomas Seyfried. So I kind of broke this down for you. So here it is. So when we have damage to the mitochondria, you have damaged cellular respiration. So you're not working from here, aerobic respiration, and down through the electron transport chain to produce your 36 ATP. You're over here and fermentation producing only 2 ATP from the glucose, right? And so the body has to maintain a steady state of energy, and these cancer cells have to gobble up a lot of sugar to do that. And survival through the cell through fermentation. The cells start to revert back to a primitive state before oxygen was in the atmosphere, right? And so as cells are blowing out lactic acid into the environment, creating acidification, creating a wound to be healed, it's going to bring in blood supply, right? Angiogenesis to support those cancer cells. And why doesn't the cancer cell just, when cells go rogue, they need to off themselves, apoptosis. And apoptosis is controlled by cytochrome C of the mitochondria here on the what? The inner cell membrane. So if that inner cell membrane is damaged, maybe that's not going to work so well, right? So normally we get down here, we drop our fats, our carbs, our proteins, we bring it through acetyl-CoA into the Krebs cycle to make our intermediates. We make 2 ATP here, we make 2 ATP here. We put it into the electron transport chain to make our through oxidative phosphorylation to make most of our ATP energy. Healthy cells use that for about 85% of their ATP. But if you have cancer, usually this electron transport chain is going to be affected. Eventually, the Krebs cycle will be affected, and you're stuck up here producing 2 ATP. And if you have a damaged cell membrane here, where this thing is not working to make this 36 ATP here, you're usually producing lots of superoxide free radicals here. This is where all the action takes place to produce that ATP. It's a highly energetic system here. And what happens is if you're producing these superoxide radicals, the mitochondria has its own DNA. Not very well protected like the nuclear DNA that has histones and blocks that from happening. This gets hit pretty good. More mitochondrial damage. One more thing is the more undifferentiated cancer cells become, the more they derive their energy from glucose in a process called anaerobic glycolysis. So we want to maintain outer, inner, we want to maintain all the cell membrane health. That's what Brian was talking about by using these parent essential oils. And one of the parts that is talked about in the literature is something called cardiolipin, which is part of the inner cell membrane of the mitochondria. It says cardiolipin, the heart of the mitochondrial metabolism. And let me find a place because I'm not going to read you this whole thing, but there's some really interesting things here. In the mitochondrial membrane, cardiolipin plays an important role in energy metabolism, mainly by providing stability of the individual enzymes and enzyme complexes involved in energy production. Moreover, cardiolipin is involved in different stages of the mitochondrial apoptotic process and in the mitochondrial membrane dynamics. Cardiolipin alterations have been described in various pathological conditions. So it's made of omega-6. Patients suffering from patients suffering from Barr syndrome have an altered cardiolipin homeostasis caused by a primary deficiency in cardiolipin remodeling. Alterations in cardiolipin content or composition have also been reported in more frequent diseases such as diabetes and heart failure. So in this review, we provide an overview of cardiolipin metabolism, function, and its role in different pathological states. So this stuff is really important because it's involved in apoptosis. So when a cell goes rogue, the cell will create oxidation of cardiolipin to create apoptosis. It's another mechanism here. Don't mess with my cardiolipin. So there's a big workshop here in Italy, which I went to it. Cardiolipin is a key lipid of mitochondrial health and disease. We're getting there, gang. We're getting there. So almost there. So what's important about healthy cell membranes? Allowing nutrients into the cell to generate ATP. Cell membranes incorporate hormone receptors. So if you have crummy cell membranes, it's going to affect your hormone receptors. So we're all, always, looking at other ways of manipulating our hormones, right? And functional medicine. But we got to fix the cell membranes. We have to stabilize those membranes. And if you have crummy cell membranes, that ain't going to happen. You're not going to, so it's going to affect the hormone cell receptors. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, but involved in waste removal. The cell membrane dictates by its distributions of essential fatty acids if you have fluid or a rigid cell membrane. So if you're getting all those refined oils from eating all those processed oils that are out there, this becomes more like plastic. Too much fish oil, it becomes more fluid and it doesn't work properly. Your cell membranes and mitochondrial membranes are strong. It's difficult for viruses and bacteria and toxins and mold and chemicals to create disease. This is your sensory system, the cell membranes out here. And they know what's going on outside to send that information into the cell. And they are involved in cell to cell communication. So, for proper communication between and within cells, and so it sends that information into the cell, into the nucleus. So genes are then turned on and off based on healthy functioning of cell membranes. It is the cell membranes that change epigenetics. Good membranes, good gene expression. So the cell membranes are the brains of the cell. We talked about that. How about maintaining the proper electrical potential for healthy cell function? We know that the cell membranes on the outside of the cells usually keeps to about a negative 70 millivolts. So when our health declines, that voltage drops, and we have less of a electrical chemical gradient to bring our nutrients in and run the show from a cellular standpoint. So we've got to maintain the health of our membranes. And renegade fats become part of our membranes. So avoid processed trans and fried fats, or your cell membranes will consist of these renegade fats, right? So too much processed omega-6 in the diet from, you go to your health food store and they got all these in a lot of the products, they're bad. They're bad and they'll become part of your membrane. Too much processed 6. We want healthy omega-6, right? Which we're going to be talking about here. Omega-6 makes up 33% of your cell membranes and 40% of your mitochondrial membranes. Omega-6 can increase the amount of O2 across the cell membrane by 30%. That's a lot. And that's going to give you a lot more energy, improve mitochondrial energy efficiency, and every cell in the body works better. And most people that come into our office, what are they coming in? They have fatigue, no energy, and what the magic happens when you saturate the cell membrane with PEOs. And here it is: heart health, more flexible arteries. Things aren't going to stick to those arteries, right? And create atherosclerosis, lower blood pressure. A lot of the time, people are complaining about, especially if I put them on a program like ketogenic diet, those kind of things. You give them these things, and it's going to take care of a lot of their appetite problems. Better appetite, less hunger, less cravings, lowers blood sugar, less neuropathy and retinopathy, and takes care of those sweet cravings like we were talking about, and really less inflammation, less joint pain and swelling, faster healing, which has been proven. Hormones are going to improve, right? Because all the receptors are on the cell membrane. Better clarity, sharper focus, improved memory, diminished ADD and ADHD, and again, more energy because you're getting more oxygen into the cells, right? To produce ATP, less fatigue, anyway, faster recuperation, a lot of good things. I'm not going to go through a lot of this, just give you the brief. These are different research articles. This was use of broad spectrum plant-based blend of omega-3, omega-6, EFAs in the treatment of migraine headaches. People got migraine headaches. This seemed to work in these articles very well for migraine. Chronic wound healing, diabetic ulcers, healing, surgical healing, new plant-based treatment. Right here. Research on that for wound healing. Omega-6 fatty acids, biomarkers in incident type 2 diabetes. Anyway, let me just show you what that says. These are the highest levels of linoleic acid, the plant-based omega-6. In pure form omega have a 35% less chance of having diabetes. That's pretty good. American Heart Association. American Heart Association endorses naturally sourced omega-6s. We talk about dementia and Alzheimer's, these things. You have to maintain the healthy membranes of your neurons, your neuronal membranes. And that's a big deal. This will help immensely to do that. So, omega 6, you got a bad omega 6, maybe you got an overdose of omega 3. It's going to destabilize your cell membranes. You have 30% oxygen deprivation in your cells if you have cancer, right? This is going to affect if you have destabilized membranes, it could contribute to everything really. Alzheimer's, more cardiovascular disease, increased pain. So what are we going to do with these guys? We're going to take one capsule for per 40 pounds of body weight. That's for a relatively healthy individual. For a patient that is not healthy, I would double the dose. And for how long? It takes 90 days to saturate the membranes. It probably takes another 30 days to displace the omega 3 that most of us have been using on the cell membrane. These are some incredible studies. This one's out of MD Anderson, and we're not going to go into that right now. But I had a patient just read this because she's having a mastectomy, right? Healing effects of PEO's formulation in post-cancer breast reconstruction surgery patients. The average healing time of these patients is an astounding 18 months. And I wasn't going to read it, but we were confident based on the study on chronic wounds conducted at the University of Miami that the recovery time can be reduced by 50%. That's the main thing, and that's pretty important. Almost last here, damaged cell membranes and mitochondrial membranes. So remember, if this is pretty important. Got damaged membranes here, less oxygen to the mitochondria, decreased ATP. You need ATP also to get nutrients in and toxins out. You got to have that energy. If you can't do that, toxins build up in here. You're going to end up using a lot of your glutathione and your major antioxidant fighters to reduce the inflammation and deal with this load in here. But remember that even glutathione is ATP dependent, so you're going to have increased toxins and you're going to have all sorts of problems in here. And on top of that, many repair mechanisms can be affected, and that's a whole subject in itself because I do genetic testing through methyl-genetic nutrition, and I'll show you that just in a minute. But a lot of people have problems in the repair genes actually as well. And very interesting, damaged membranes, decreased ATP. This is new for you. Mitochondria is the site of steroid hormone synthesis. So whoever thought that, so if you got the thyroid, you're talking about the thyroid or the adrenals, the mitochondria in each of those individual organs makes those appropriate hormones. It synthesizes them. The mitochondria inside each cell produces its respective hormones. For example, the mitochondria in the adrenals synthesize cortisol and epinephrine, and hypothalamus produces the ACTH via the mitochondria. Damaged mitochondria is going to affect your hormones. The mitochondria is loaded with receptors, which we just talked about. The hormones dock on the receptors, so the mitochondria knows how much hormones to synthesize. So it's kind of like that negative feedback loop. It produces it, and it also has receptors to be able to say, hey, we need to tone that down and make more of this or that. And you can have, if you have damaged receptors, damaged membranes, hormone resistance, just like insulin resistance. Here's another one. MAO enzyme is on the mitochondrial membrane, monoamine oxidase, to degrade your catecholamines to calm things down. So affecting your mood. And you can't take your epi and nori and those things and break them down, then you have a pretty stressed out person, right? We're almost done here. So what else can go wrong, right? and you'll find out what else can go wrong. And that's because I do the genetics and look at people's mutations, and I compare that with the urine organic acid test. And you can see some people really, when we talk about ATP, not only do we have to heal the cell membrane, but sometimes they need a little help because they have mutations from sometimes both parents. And there's variants in the carnitine transport to transport fat into the cell. This is a pantothenol is needed to make coenzyme A, needed for the Krebs cycle. So you can have some SNPs here. Fat variants that can affect fatty acid metabolism. ACAT variants can vary. Variants can affect the conversion of fats and proteins into acetyl-CoA to be taken into the Krebs cycle. PDHP variants can affect the conversion of pyruvate into acetyl-CoA. So, you have a lot of other things, but first you got to fix the cell membrane. That's one of the main things. I see people with really complex issues, and later I have to go in and look at these things so I can bypass nutritionally some of these mutations that can be affecting our patients. With that said, I want to thank you because I knew this is a long one. I hope this was good for you. I think that, get on our site. I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that because it's true. Get the parent essential oils on our site. They're priced at the lowest price that you're going to get them for your patients. Uh, we got the molecular hydrogen on there. We have the ketone marine plasma on there. These are things that I use that I think would help you and help your patients. And don't forget to, the angioscan. You can get the angioscan, get the bioimpedance, heart rate variability if you don't have that. These are things that you can use to help track your patient's health. And with that said, I want to thank you for listening today. And we're going to keep doing this every month. If you want to contact us, that's our phone number. And this is our email where you can reach us. Thank you very much.